So, it's a bit cold, I'm putting on gloves. So, that wouldn't work on the streets. I think it's, I saw this meme, or meme, that, I don't know how to pronounce it, that was posted by a friend of mine all morning, and he said, you know how many martial arts instructors it takes to change a light bulb? And it says about 100. One to change the light bulb and about 99 to tell you that wouldn't work on the street. And it's very funny because it's a discussion that I think exists in almost every part of martial arts. I have basically almost met no martial artists that don't have an opinion on this. And of course their martial art works on the street and most others don't. It's a common concept in both traditional martial arts, in combatives, in combative sports, across the whole field. Now, I come from a traditional martial art and have flirted a bit with some combatives, and I'm going to come from my perspective, but I'm going to try to shed as much light as I can on the subject. First of all, I think to understand what this means, this idea that that wouldn't work on the streets, I think we have to clarify what is the difference between a fight on a street or everywhere, on a bar, anywhere, and what is a fight in a dojo. Now, first of all, the absolute biggest difference is that in a dojo, or gym, or kwan, or galangang, or whatever you want to call it, nobody's really trying to hurt you. I mean, they're trying their best to match their skills with you, but they're not really trying to hurt you. And if they are, change school. All right? Because that's a factor that you really can't reproduce in a training environment, at least not a safe training environment. What you can reproduce is you can reproduce some of the effects of it. Why you can put on lots of protection, or you can create some aggression, or the intent can be try to manufacture the intent, but you can't have that intent to really hurt somebody, because just it wouldn't be safe. So this is the same for everybody. No matter if they train, Chinese martial arts, they train silat, they train karate, or they train Krav Maga, or MMA, or Thai boxing, wrestling, everything. Nobody's really trying to hurt you. They're trying their best to match their skills against you, and that's good. That's why it's a healthy thing to do. Well, when I say that you have different ways of simulating it, in my opinion, I think one of the strengths of combative sports is that not in sparring, but in actual competition, this is about as close as you will get to somebody really trying to hurt you, because there is a lot more at stake. Sparring in an MMA gym or a Thai gym is no different from sparring in any other kind of gym or school, or if they do sanda or Thai kickboxing, or they do karate or silat or whatever. It's basically the same thing. It's no better or no worse. However, the fact that you get to compete, and there's a lot of people who want to compete, and really, really good people who compete, they carry each other up. So you get a higher level because of this. This is one of the strengths of combative sports in the aspect of what would be realism. And so this is, I think, maybe what they have the best going for them. Also, people say, yeah, but they have rules. And it's like, yeah, all right, rules can be a negative thing. But I mean, most people have some sort of rules when they spar. And I can't see you putting in a lot less rules than you would do in MMA without people really getting hurt, which again would actually hinder training. So I'm not sure that that's a good argument. There are some factors that are clearly not taken into account in combative sports. For example, environment, for example, multiple opponents, and weapons. These are the strengths of the other arts, like traditional ones and combatives. They often take these things into account, and the combative sports, generally speaking, do not. And so you'd have to have the awareness of somebody using weapons, both knowledge of how to use them yourself. So because this is, if you're going to handle attacks with weapons, you better learn how to use the weapon, or you're actually just training yourself to fight against somebody who don't know how to use a weapon. The same goes with striking. A lot of the traditional martial arts, especially the self-defense oriented martial arts, have a tendency to focus only on what comes after the opponent has attacked you, and never learn to really attack. And what you wind up doing is you actually teach only your students to defend against people who are not very good at attacking. So this is a weakness in the traditional martial arts. Many of them, not all of them. And in combatives, very often the combatives are very, very self-defense oriented. They're not very good at striking or kicking or anything like that, compared to people who train that a lot. So this is the strengths and weaknesses. They can show up in the traditional ones and in combatives, and they can be absent. Also, another factor is multiple opponents. Now, a lot of people talk about multiple opponents, but I don't know how many really train a lot against multiple opponents. I know that actually a system that does it quite a lot is Aikido. I know that Krav Maga and similar systems, they often have exercises like this, and some Silat and some Chinese martial arts, I think they also sometimes have it, but I don't know how often you do it. But this is more down to the school than actually to the system, and doing that is, if you're going to say that, all right, I'm training for self-defense purposes, to also be able to handle multiple opponents, then you'll have to train against multiple opponents for that to be a valid argument. The same, of course. And the same goes for weapons, and the same goes for environment, because you can say, yeah, but wrestling around on the street isn't a great idea. I agree. I mean, grappling systems are fantastic. I mean, one-on-one in a safe environment, it's completely superior in my opinion. To be in a situation, I have worked as a bouncer for many years, and to be in a situation where the ground isn't safe, then it changes a lot of the things, because you don't want to go to the ground. The ground isn't safe because there's glass on it. The ground isn't safe because it's full of other people. The ground isn't safe because the guy you're fighting, he has friends and he wants to kick you in the head. The ground isn't safe because it turns to grappling and the other guy might have weapons. So this actually changes a lot of the context, because then it turns into ground. The ground is generally somewhere you don't want to be, while as if you're competing in a combative sport, like for example BJJ or MMA, ground is somewhere you really want to be. So all the takedowns are actually based on you wanting to be on the ground, whereas takedowns that would be optimized for a fight outside or in an urban environment, if you like, would be not going to the ground. That would be a really bad idea, generally. If the ground turns out to be safe and somebody drags you to the ground, grappling is fantastic. And also they have a lot of aliveness training. They're really good at what they're doing. Absolutely, there's no doubt that it works. Now, the thing that there can be multiple opponents and that the ground isn't safe. This is important to think about, because it means that if you want to, some of the takedowns you'll wind up actually doing or that really works while you are fighting somebody who wants to go to the ground, they are optimized for that purpose. But some of the takedowns that really works well against somebody who doesn't want to be on the ground, they aren't really optimal for people who want to be on the ground. And I've tried this. not that I have huge experience in it, but I've sparred a little bit with some good grapplers and people who want to be on the ground. And the thing is that one of the things I realized pretty quick is that some of my takedowns, they weren't all that great. And I was like, wow, why is that? And not many of them worked, but not all of them. And I realized, no, because they're optimized for fighting people who don't want to be on the ground. Because they want to keep standing. And it changes a lot, because if being on the ground is a good thing, then the moment you strike their balance, that might not be necessarily a bad thing for them, because that's okay, losing your balance. You'll just drag the other guy with you and you'll both be on the ground. That's good. But if you're fighting somebody who doesn't want to be on the ground, then that becomes a problem for them, because they want to keep standing. They absolutely don't want to go to the ground. For me, if I was fighting a guy who is good on the ground, I throw him to the ground, and that would be fantastic for him, because he'd probably be safer down there than standing up, or what do I know, depending on the guy. So this is my thoughts about this subject, which is very complex, but I think it's been handled in a very black and white manner, and everybody's sitting on their little field saying that, oh yeah, well, we got this works because it works with us, and no, that doesn't work. And generally speaking, everything can work. It's down to context and where will it work and what is it optimized for. And this is what I wanted to say, that a lot of it comes down to lack of humility and lack of understanding for what the other people are doing. Because actually I found that a lot of the things that I personally fell into this category myself for a long time, and maybe still do at some point, but I've criticized a lot of martial arts that I found later on had stuff that was really good once I started looking into it. And so a lot of that critic comes from people who only see their own side of the story, or only see their own little worlds. So that was my thoughts on the subject. All right, thank you very much. Bye bye.